Well, g'day everyone. The people that have been following me have known that I've sort of had this discussion about the Sony a7S III and the low megapixels that the camera has, which is in fact about 12.1 megapixels. And early on I was sort of thinking, well, it's just no good to me anymore as a wedding photographer, as a fusion type camera. And I was going to sort of think about waiting to see what the A7 IV had, that it might give me, well, it will probably give much more megapixels, like probably 24 or even higher. And then I went back over my work to sort of have a look at the images that I used to take. Now, I used to shoot with a Nikon D3S, and that was basically a 12 megapixel sensor. And then when I went through the images, I used to shoot all of my weddings, all my portrait shoots and everything at that stage with the Nikon D3S. And I started to think, well, perhaps I've got the wrong thinking here. Now, yes, 12 megapixels, you do have to make some compromises. And what I'm talking about there is that you have to understand that you haven't really got the ability to crop in. So the way I shoot, I don't really crop in post. I nearly always crop exactly in camera as I'm going to use it. And that's the way you've got to think if you're using a resolution like a 12 megapixel camera. And that's probably why I grew up that way, or say developed myself shooting that way, because I realized that I just didn't have that ability to crop in much if I wanted to do reasonable sized prints. And so I wanted to sort of discuss this with you. So it's sort of changed my thinking that this may still be really usable as an event type camera. And the things that I'm thinking about here is I've got a feeling that the dynamic range is going to be incredible on this sensor for still photography. It's also going to be amazing in low light, and often in weddings and things like that you are dealing with low light. And I also believe that the electronic shutter in this is going to be very, very good without rolling shutter. And I'm thinking that because the video aspect of this, there's almost no rolling shutter. So it sort of changed my thinking. So what I did was I went back through all of my work that I did, and it reinforced to me how good the 12 megapixel was in something like the Nikon D3S. Now let me just show you something that I was thinking, and I'll talk to you about that. So this was an image that I grabbed with my Nikon D3S. You can see over here it's got the D3S there. To show what camera manufacturer it actually was. And this was shot with a 35mm. Sorry, this was shot with a 2470. But this is the type of image you've got. Now, like I said, if you blow the images up, that's where you get compromises, because you will start to lose sharpness when you blow images up. But the interesting thing is you can print these off at reasonable sizes. And that's what I sort of came to think, well, most of my brides now, to be honest, a lot of them really are just going for the slideshows and say viewing the images on their TV, which is 4K. Now you'll notice the resolution of this is 4029 by 2681. So you've got ample resolution to view this on a 4K monitor, which is, like I said, more than what most people are even looking at this stage. A lot of it only have 1080p monitors, but you have got enough with a 12 megapixel sensor to view this at 4K. Now, the interesting thing is, so how well would this print? Well, if we look at, say, Photoshop, so if I open this up in Photoshop and then I go to image and image size, you'll notice here that if I bring this over, at the moment it's giving me, because remember the true resolution you would have for print resolution is 300 dpi. Now I use less than that. I usually use around 250, and I've found that I get really acceptable results at 250. So at the moment, if I want full resolution, I can print this off at 13 inches by 8.9. So that's the size that I can get. But if I did take that down to my, say, the size that I usually send it off to my labs, which is 250, I can get a 16 by 10 inch print. Which is more than enough for what a lot of people are printing. Like I say, a lot of my clients now are just getting 8 by 12s. So you've got ample room for that inside this sensor size. And this is where I'm starting to, change my mind about things. So I can go up to 16 by 10 if I wanted to use something like that. The other thing too is I do massive prints. Now let me just show you. This was done from the Nikon D3S. So I did print this off the D3S. You can sort of see the size that we're looking at here. It's quite large. Now this is a canvas. So canvases generally take less resolution than when I send that off to my supplier, it's around about 200 dpi is ample for a canvas print. And that's beautiful. Now, if that's not enough, well, what you can do is you can use software to res these up. Now, if I go over here and I'll show you what I use. If I go to the file menu and if I go to automate, and I go down to on one, it's resize 2017. Now, I've got to update this because I don't think this runs now in the latest version of Photoshop. I think it just comes up with an error. So that's what I used to resize the images. And to be honest, the results are excellent if I wanted to get a great result from that. And there's other things out there, other software you can use to resize your images as well. Yeah, it's not going to open, it's locked. There's other great software out there that you can use to resize the images, and the results are really, really good. Now, the other thing that you've got to understand too, it also depends on how close you want to get to the print. If you are, say, a long way from the print, you won't notice a resolution difference at all. But if you get very close, like if you're looking really close to a print and it was enlarged, well, then obviously the more megapixels that you have, it would make a difference. So if you're using something like an A7 III or an A7R, if you got very close to a print, you would be able to tell the difference in that regard as well. But viewing distances, you can't. That's why when you look at billboards, they're designed to be viewed from a long way away. So even though, the pixels or dots, I should say, on the print are really quite large, you don't notice them from a long distance away. So there's times where it will make a difference. If you were the type of photographer that likes to crop in post, obviously the 12 megapixels may not be enough for you. If you wanted to print massive prints and you weren't happy with using, say, these software that will interpolate, and that's what it's doing, it's using interpolation, it also may not be enough for you. And that's the thing that you've got to consider if the 12 megapixels is enough for you. In fact, it probably is enough for me, particularly for the work that I do. And like I said, I'm selling less and less prints now, and really what I'm doing is I'm sharing the images online. I'm giving slideshows to the couple or to the model. They're putting it on Instagram, watching it on their televisions and things like that. So this is what you have to understand. It just depends on your workflow and what you've got. So in fact, I think the 12 megapixels might really fit well within my workflow. Okay, so that was I just thought I'd show you some images that I've taken with the D3S there. And like I said, I could have blown those up to a really quite large size, 16 inches at least, without any downsampling done at all. And then if I wanted to go larger, I could just use some software to interpolate to give me larger images, which works very well now. So let me know what you think about this, but I think 12 megapixels may be workable, and I'm really excited to have a go at it to see what it can give me, particularly with the new sensors in these cameras and the dynamic range, the great focusing, and the super low light capabilities that this could give me. Apart from that, guys, leave any questions down below, and I'll see you all soon in the next video. Bye for now.